First contact. The crystalline spires of Research Station Omega-7 pierced the perpetual twilight of Kepler 186 like frozen lightning strikes. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at her observation window, watching the binary sunset paint the crystal metal structures in shades of amber and violet. After 3 years studying xenobiology at this remote outpost, she had grown accustomed to the loneliness, but never to the beauty. A warning light pulsed on her console, pulling her attention from the view. The station's deep space sensors had detected an anomalous energy signature, something falling through the upper atmosphere. Sarah adjusted her instruments, tracking the object's descent. It wasn't debris. The energy pattern was too organized, too rhythmic. Computer, analyze descent trajectory and composition, she commanded, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The response came immediately. The object was organic, or at least partially so. More importantly, it was alive. Sarah grabbed her environment suit and emergency kit. Station protocol dictated that all unknown biological entities should be reported to Central Command for quarantine and study. But something about the energy signature's rhythm spoke to her. It felt like a cry for help. The journey to the impact site took 20 minutes by rover. As she crested the final ridge, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. There, in a shallow impact crater, lay something that defied her 15 years of xenobiological research. The creature resembled a massive geode, its crystalline surface refracting the dying sunlight into countless rainbow patterns. But unlike any geode she'd ever studied, this one pulsed with internal light, and more incredibly sound. A deep resonant tone emanated from within, like a massive crystal wine glass being played. As Sarah approached, her suit's sensors detected more signatures, smaller ones, tucked beneath the larger crystal being. Young ones, she realized. The adult was curled around them protectively, its light dimming with each passing moment. "Hello," Sarah whispered, knowing the creature couldn't understand her words, but hoping it might sense her intention through the tonal qualities of her voice. "I'm here to help." The crystal beam's surface rippled, its facets shifting like liquid glass. A harmonic tone emerged, complex and beautiful, but clearly weakening. Sarah's instruments showed multiple fractures in the creature's crystalline structure, fatal damage if left untreated. She reached out slowly, placing her gloved hand against the creature's surface. The resonance changed, becoming questioning, uncertain. The smaller crystals, she counted 3, hummed in harmony with their parent, their tones higher and more delicate. Sarah's comm unit crackled. "Dr. Chen, this is Control. We're detecting unauthorized biological contact in your sector. Stand down and await the quarantine team." She looked at the dying creature, at its children huddled close, and made her decision. "Control, there's been a mistake. Just some interesting mineral formations. I'm heading back now." The lie felt bitter in her mouth, but as she began setting up portable force field generators to hide the creatures from the station's sensors, she knew it was necessary. Her instruments had detected traces of weapons-grade metamaterials in the creature's composition. Someone had engineered these beautiful beings for war, and when they had proven unsuitable, they had been discarded. "I don't know what you are," she whispered, working quickly to stabilize the adult's deteriorating condition. "But I know you deserve better than this." The adult crystal's light pulsed once, weakly, and its harmonic tone shifted to match the frequency of Sarah's voice. The smaller crystals followed suit, creating the symphony of resonance that made her heart ache with its beauty. As the binary stars set, casting the world into its brief night, Sarah Chen, daughter of Earth, scientist, and now protector, began an endeavor that would change the course of human-alien relations forever. She just didn't know it yet. In the darkness, the crystals glowed like captured stars, their song a promise and a prayer. Sarah checked her emergency beacon's recording of their resonance patterns. If she could understand their harmonic language, maybe she could save them. Maybe she could prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its ability to wage war, but its capacity for compassion. A distant alarm echoed across the crystalline plains. The quarantine team would be launching soon. Sarah had perhaps an hour to hide her new charges and formulate a plan. She activated her rover's cargo bay, specially modified for xenobiological specimen transport. "Okay," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Let's get you somewhere safe. Then we can figure out exactly what you are, and who did this to you." The crystal being's song shifted, becoming something that, even through the alien harmonics, Sarah could swear sounded like hope. Breaking protocol. The maintenance sublevel of Omega-7 hadn't seen visitors in months, evidenced by the thin layer of dust coating every surface. Sarah guided her rover through the narrow service tunnels, wincing at every crystalline tone that echoed off the metal walls. The adult resonator's condition had stabilized somewhat, but its song remained weak, fragmentary. "Just a little further," she whispered, more to herself than her passengers. The rover's modified containment field was keeping their energy signatures masked from the station's primary sensors, but she couldn't hide them forever. She'd chosen her destination carefully. An abandoned atmospheric processing chamber, shielded from most scans by layers of radiation-resistant alloys. As she sealed the heavy doors behind them, Sarah's tablet chimed with an incoming message. "Dr. Marcus Rivera, her department head. Chen, where are you? The quarantine team is suiting up, and Control wants your preliminary report." Sarah watched the crystal beings pulse with gentle light as she transferred them to the chamber. The youngest one, barely larger than her hand, chimed a perfect fifth harmony with its siblings. "Just finishing up field notes," she replied, trying to keep her voice casual. "False alarm, Marcus. Some interesting mineral formations, but nothing biological. I'll have the report on your desk in an hour." There was a pause. "Sarah, are you sure? Because the energy readings we got were consistent with charged crystal formations interacting with our sensor grid. You know how the double sunset plays havoc with our instruments." Another pause, longer this time. "All right, but I want that report detailed. Every reading, every scan." Sarah ended the transmission and leaned against the chamber wall, her heart pounding. Marcus wasn't stupid. He'd been her mentor for 3 years, and he knew when she was holding something back. The adult crystal's song changed, drawing her attention. Its facets had shifted, creating a complex geometric pattern she hadn't seen before. The 3 younglings arranged themselves similarly, their harmonics interweaving in what had to be communication. "You're trying to tell me something, aren't you?" Sarah approached, running her scanner over their crystalline forms. The readings were fascinating. Their molecular structure was unlike anything in her database, a perfect blend of organic and mineral components. The largest youngling extended a crystalline projection toward her, its surface rippling like liquid glass. When she carefully touched it, a harmonic resonance passed through her suit's sensors, resolving into a pattern her computer immediately began analyzing. "It's mathematics," she breathed, watching the equations form on her display. "You're not just communicating, you're teaching." The adult's song strengthened briefly, confirming her revelation. These weren't weapons, Sarah realized. They were teachers, living libraries encoded in crystalline form. Someone had tried to weaponize them, to turn their harmonics into destructive waves, but they had resisted. Her tablet chimed again, another message from Control. Multiple ships had appeared at the edge of the system, their configurations matching no known human designs. The quarantine team was being repurposed for possible defensive action. They'd come for the resonators. Sarah's mind raced. The atmospheric chamber wouldn't hide them for long, not from a dedicated search. She needed help, but more than that, she needed proof. Proof that these beings were sentient, that they were worth protecting. The adult resonator's song changed, becoming something that could only be described as mournful. The holographic display shifted, showing scenes of crystal beings like themselves being forced into massive machines, their harmonics weaponized into destructive waves that could shatter ships and shields alike. They didn't just try to weaponize you. Sarah realized, watching the historical record unfold. They succeeded with some of your kind, but you resisted. You escaped. The youngest crystal projected a small image of what had to be a Hellcarry, a towering armored figure with multiple limbs and bioluminescent markings. The projection showed them conducting experiments, trying to alter the crystal being's fundamental structure. "Commander," Marcus answered, his voice steady, "we're in the middle of critical research. Request permission to submit our findings in writing." "Denied. The Hellcarry ambassador is here personally. Whatever you found, whatever readings we detected, they're claiming it as their property. Military technology, they say." Sarah's hand clenched into a fist. "They're not property," she whispered, but the commander had already ended the transmission. A new alarm blared through the station. The hunt was intensifying. "We need to move them," Marcus said, quickly gathering their data crystals. "This chamber won't hide them much longer, not if the Hellcarry bring their own scanning equipment aboard." "Move them where?" "The whole station's being searched." Marcus pulled up a schematic on his tablet. "There's an old mining tunnel network under the station, left over from initial construction. Most of it's not even on current maps." He looked at the crystal beings. "If we can get them there, we might buy enough time to contact Earth, get diplomatic intervention." The adult resonator's light pulsed brighter, and suddenly the chamber was filled with a three-dimensional map of the entire station, including the forgotten tunnel system. But their map showed something else. A massive cavern deep below, filled with naturally occurring crystals that might mask their energy signatures. "You knew," Sarah breathed. "You've been scanning the station this whole time, looking for a safe haven." The younglings chimed in harmony, their song almost playful despite the danger. The adult's projection zoomed in on a particular maintenance shaft, showing them the safest route to the cavern. "That's why you chose to crash here," Marcus realized. "You weren't just running blindly. You were looking for somewhere your children could hide, grow." A new sound cut through their revelation, the distinctive hiss of cutting torches on the chamber's outer door. They were out of time. "Marcus," Sarah said quickly, "take the data crystals to command. Show them what we've learned, what the Hellcarry are really doing. I'll get them to the cavern. Sarah, if you're caught harboring them, then I'll have done the right thing." She was already activating her rover's containment field. Humanity's first real challenge in dealing with advanced aliens shouldn't be deciding whether to help them recapture their slaves. The door's hinges were beginning to glow red. Marcus hesitated just a moment longer, then grabbed the crystals and headed for the emergency exit. "Be careful," he called back. "And Sarah, I'm proud of you." As Marcus disappeared into the access tunnel, Sarah helped the crystal beings into her rover. The adult song had become more urgent, but there was something else in its harmonics now. Trust. "Okay," she said, sealing the rover's hatches as the chamber door began to buckle. "Show me the way." The youngest crystal created a small holographic arrow, pointing them toward their best chance at survival. Behind them, the chamber door exploded inward, admitting armed figures in environment suits. Sarah gunned the rover's engines, sending it plunging into a maintenance shaft barely wider than the vehicle itself. As they descended into the darkness beneath Omega-7, the crystal beings' combined song rose in defiance of those who would enslave them. And Sarah Chen, who had broken every protocol she'd sworn to uphold, found herself humming along with their melody of freedom. The adult resonator must have sensed her distress. Its song changed, becoming more focused, and the chamber's metal walls began to vibrate in sympathy. The harmonics shifted, and suddenly the air was filled with holographic projections, star maps, mathematical formulae, and what looked like historical records encoded in geometric patterns. "You're not just teachers," Sarah whispered, awe creeping into her voice. "You're historians, preservers of knowledge." The youngest crystal chimed excitedly, its song creating a small but perfect representation of DNA's double helix in light above it. The others joined in, and the projection expanded to show the evolutionary history of multiple species, some human, some utterly alien. Sarah's hands flew over her tablet, recording everything. This was it, the proof she needed. These beings weren't weapons to be reclaimed or specimens to be quarantined. They were refugees, guardians of knowledge deemed too dangerous by whoever had tried to remake them into instruments of war. Her tablet chimed a third time. Marcus's voice, urgent now. "Sarah, we have a situation. Those ships, they're demanding the return of what they're calling military assets. The station commander is ordering a full sweep of the impact zone. Whatever you found out there, whatever you're hiding, you need to tell me now." Sarah looked at the crystal beings, still projecting the collected knowledge of who knew how many civilizations. The adult song had taken on a questioning tone, waiting for her decision. "Marcus," she said finally, "I need you to come to Atmospheric Processing Chamber 3. Come alone, and bring every data crystal you can carry." She took a deep breath. "I'm about to show you something that will change everything we think we know about alien civilization." She ended the transmission before he could respond, and turned back to her charges. "Okay," she said, straightening her shoulders. "Let's prepare our evidence. If we're going to convince humanity to protect you, we need to make our case perfect." The crystal being's song rose in a chorus of harmonious agreement, their light painting the chamber walls with the collected knowledge of 1,000 worlds. As Sarah began organizing the revelations into a presentable format, she couldn't help but smile. Sometimes, breaking protocol was the most human thing one could do. Above them, the alien ships drew closer, their weapons charged, but Sarah Chen had made her choice. Humanity's first true contact with an advanced alien civilization wouldn't be marked by warfare, but by the protection of knowledge itself. The youngest crystal hummed a perfect note of hope, and Sarah hummed back, matching its frequency. They had perhaps an hour before everything changed. She intended to make every minute count. The hunt begins. The rhythmic pounding of boots on metal decking echoed through Omega-7's corridors. Sarah watched through the chamber security feed as squads of armed personnel swept the station, level by level. Above them, 3 alien warships hung in high orbit, their angular forms blocking out the binary stars. Marcus stood beside her, still staring at the resonators in wonder. For the past 20 minutes, they'd been downloading the crystal being's historical archives into every data storage device they could find. "This is incredible," he breathed, watching as the adult crystal projected another star chart, this one showing the migration patterns of ancient spacefaring civilizations. They're not just preserving knowledge. They're living libraries of entire cultures. "Which is exactly why we can't let them be turned into weapons," Sarah replied, checking the chamber's shielding for the 100th time. The youngling crystals had arranged themselves in a triangular pattern around their parent, their combined harmonics creating increasingly complex projections. Her tablet flashed with an urgent message. The station commander's face appeared, lined with stress. "Dr. Chen, Dr. Rivera, report to command immediately. The Hellcarry representatives are demanding answers." "The who?" Sarah asked, but Marcus's sharp intake of breath told her he recognized the name. "The Hellcarry Dominion," he said grimly. "They're one of the most militant species we've encountered in our exploration. Usually keep to themselves, but," he gestured at the crystal beings, "apparently they've been busy. Unexpected allies." The maintenance tunnels beneath Omega-7 were a maze of rusting metal and forgotten machinery, lit only by the gentle glow of the crystal beings and the rover's running lights. Sarah guided the vehicle through passages that grew increasingly narrow, following the holographic guidance of her unusual passengers. "Life signs detected in Sector 7, crackled a voice over her stolen security feed. "Multiple signatures, heading deeper." The adult resonator's song shifted to a lower frequency, dampening their energy output. The younglings followed suit, their usual bright glow dimming to barely visible pulses. They were learning, adapting, trying to survive. Sarah's tablet lit up with an encrypted message from Marcus. Command is in chaos. Hellcarry ambassador claiming fugitive military assets. But Sarah, the data we collected. It's not just historical records. These beings have documented every illegal weapons project the Hellcarry have developed. Every violation of galactic law. Before she could respond, the rover's sensors picked up movement ahead. Sarah tensed, ready to reverse course, when a familiar voice came through her comm. Dr. Chen. It was Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's chief engineer. Don't run. We're here to help. Around the bend stood Yuki and a small group of station personnel. Engineers, maintenance workers, and to Sarah's surprise, several members of station security. All of them had their ID beacons disabled. Marcus showed us everything, Yuki explained as Sarah cautiously stopped the rover. The historical records, the weapons programs. The Hellcarry have been violating every treaty they've signed with Earth. The adult crystal song rose slightly, projecting images of other research stations, other facilities where their kind had been experimented on. But these images also showed something else. Humans and other species helping crystal beings escape, hiding them from their pursuers. We're not the first, Sarah realized. Others have been helping your people. One of the security officers, Lieutenant Santos, stepped forward. There's an underground network, small but growing. Every time the Hellcarry try to weaponize these beings, someone helps them escape. We never knew the full scope until now. The youngest crystal suddenly chimed in alarm. Through the station structure, they could feel the vibrations of heavy equipment being moved into position above. They're bringing in deep scanning equipment, Yuki said grimly. These tunnels won't hide you much longer. The cavern, Sarah insisted. They showed me a cavern deep below, filled with natural crystals that could mask their signatures. Lieutenant Santos nodded. We know it. Used to be a geothermal mining operation before the station was built. But Sarah, that's not just a hiding place. The resonators chose it for a reason. The adult crystal's projection changed, showing the cavern's crystalline formations arranging themselves into a complex geometric pattern. The yumbling songs rose in harmony, and suddenly Sarah understood. It's not just a hideout, it's a transmitter. If they can interface with the natural crystal formations, they can broadcast everything they know. Yuki finished. Every crime the Hellcarry have committed, every violation of sentient rights, not just to Earth, but to every species in range. A deep rumbling shook the tunnels. The scanning had begun. We'll split up, Lieutenant Santos decided. Create multiple heat signatures, movement patterns. Give them too many targets to chase. And we'll modify the station's sensors, Yuki added. Feed them false readings, corrupt their scan data. Buy you time to reach the cavern. Sarah looked at her newfound allies. Humans who had chosen to risk everything to protect beings they barely understood, simply because it was right. The adult resonator's song changed, becoming something complex and beautiful. The projection showed images of different species working together, sharing knowledge, growing stronger through cooperation rather than conquest. This is what they were really made for, Sarah said softly. Not weapons, but bridges between civilizations, teaching us that we're stronger together. Another tremor shook the tunnels, closer this time. The hunt was intensifying. Go, Lieutenant Santos urged. We'll hold them off as long as we can. Just make it count. As Sarah prepared to continue deeper into the tunnels, Yuki pressed something into her hand. A small device covered in crystalline formations. Something we've been working on in engineering. It might help amplify their broadcast when the time comes. The youngest crystal hummed in approval, its song matching the device's resonant frequency perfectly. Sarah looked at her fellow humans. Engineers, security officers, maintenance workers, all choosing to stand against injustice. Thank you, she said simply. Just remember, Yuki called as the rover disappeared into the darkness. You're not alone anymore. None of us are. The crystal beings' song rose in a chorus of hope as they descended toward their destination. Above them, humans who had chosen compassion over protocol worked to give them their chance at freedom. And in the deepest tunnels beneath Omega-7, something was stirring. Ancient crystals beginning to resonate with a song that would soon be heard across the stars. A new symphony. The great cavern opened before them like a cathedral built by time itself. Massive crystal formations stretched from floor to ceiling, their natural geometry catching and refracting the light from Sarah's rover. As they entered, the adult resonator's song changed, becoming deeper, more primal, calling to the ancient crystals that surrounded them. One by one, the natural formations began to glow in response. Life signs converging on the mining level. Her comm crackled with Lieutenant Santos's voice. Multiple Hellcarry teams in pursuit. We're running out of ways to misdirect them. The three youngling crystals arranged themselves in a triangular pattern, their harmonics interweaving with their parents' song. The cavern's crystals pulsed in sync, creating complex interference patterns that made Sarah's instruments spark and flutter. They're building a transmission network, she breathed, watching as the crystalline geometry of the cave seemed to reshape itself, becoming more ordered, more purposeful. The device Yuki had given her grew warm in her pocket, resonating with the growing symphony. Her tablet flashed. Marcus, broadcasting from command. Sarah, the Hellcarry ambassador, is threatening military action. But we've managed to get a message to Earth's diplomatic corps. They're sending representatives at maximum speed. They won't get here in time, she replied, watching as more crystals awakened, their light building to an almost blinding intensity. But maybe they won't have to. The adult resonator's song reached a crescendo, and suddenly the air itself seemed to crystallize with information. Historical records, technical specifications, evidence of crimes against sentient beings, all encoded in harmonics that crossed the boundaries of language and species. Sarah placed Yuki's device in the center of the youngling's triangle. It immediately began to pulse, amplifying their broadcast, strengthening it. The resonators weren't just transmitting data. They were telling their story, humanity's story. The story of every being that had chosen to help them. The cavern floor trembled as heavy equipment moved into position above. The Hellcarry were getting closer. Sarah, Marcus's voice was urgent now. The ambassador is ordering his ships to power up weapons. He's threatening to destroy the whole station if the assets aren't surrendered. But something was happening in the cavern. The crystal being's broadcast had reached a critical frequency, and the natural formations were no longer just resonating. They were growing, extending, creating new patterns that spiraled up through the rock toward the station above. Sarah's instruments picked up new signals, ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Not Earth's diplomatic vessels, but others. Dozens of them, representing species she didn't recognize. The adult resonator projected one final image, a map showing their broadcast reaching across light years, awakening other crystal beings who had been hidden away, protected by other races who had chosen to defy the Hellcarry. By the stars, Marcus whispered over the comm. Sarah, the ships, they're all responding to the resonator's call. The Hellcarry didn't just create weapons. They created a network. A hidden community of beings waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth. The cavern's entrance exploded inward. Hellcarry troops in full battle armor pushed through the debris, weapons raised. But they stopped short at what they saw. The crystal beings hung suspended in a lattice of light and sound, their combined song now echoing through every crystal in the system. Sarah stood before them, a single human protecting a family that had trusted her species with their freedom. Stand down, she said firmly. They're not your weapons anymore. They never were. The Hellcarry ambassador's voice boomed through the cavern. Those are military assets, human, property of the Dominion. Stand aside or what? Marcus's voice cut in. You'll add attacking an Earth research station to your list of crimes. Too late. The resonators have already transmitted everything. Every experiment, every violation. every attempt to turn a species of teachers into weapons, and not just to Earth. As if in response, new voices began broadcasting through the station's comm system. Diplomatic representatives from a dozen species, all demanding explanations from the Hellcarry, all offering sanctuary to the crystal beings. The adult resonator's song changed one final time, becoming something Sarah could only describe as triumphant. The younglings joined in, and their combined harmony sent a shockwave of pure sound through the cavern that caused the Hellcarry weapons to shatter into useless fragments. Sarah's tablet lit up with message after message. Earth's diplomatic corps, ordering the Hellcarry to stand down. Other species offering protection, sanctuary, partnership with the crystal beings. The resonators had done more than expose crimes. They had revealed a network of cooperation that transcended species and space. In the days that followed, Omega-7 would become something new, not just a research station, but a sanctuary. A place where crystal beings could come to teach, to share knowledge, to help build bridges between civilizations. And Sarah Chin, who had once stood alone to protect a family of refugees, found herself at the center of a new kind of diplomatic corps, one dedicated to protecting knowledge, fostering understanding, and proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its ability to fight, but in its capacity to protect those who needed shelter. The youngest crystal floated down to her level, its song a perfect harmony of gratitude and hope. Sarah smiled, reaching out to touch its surface gently. "Welcome home," she whispered, and all around them, the crystals sang. End.